Hey, what's up guys? Today we're talking simulator flooring. I'm gonna get into all the details from my hitting mat to my turf to the whiteboard around the edge and how to cut your own cups so you can install this flooring at your home simulator.
Hey, if you have a quick second to hit the subscribe button, thank you so much. Stay tuned because I'm going to break down every step on how to build this entire golf sim flooring system.
All right, so I've pulled my flooring out here and that's where my hitting mat typically sits, and I've got it right over here. And as we walk over and take a look, I've got the SigPro Softy. It's 2 3/8 inches thick. It comes in two pieces. So as we tip this up, you're gonna see it's got a jigsaw connection, and then under here is your hitting strip. The hitting strip is fully replaceable, and that's this piece, and this also comes out. So your hitting strip is right here, and this piece you can replace and purchase separately. Now this is where you get like dense pile that you can actually put a tee in, and it's very durable. And then down here you've got this really soft foam, and underneath it's even softer foam with air pockets. So this is an extremely soft surface to hit off of, and really easy going on the elbows and on the joints. I had a lot of pain in the elbows and in the joints when I was first hitting off normal mats, which is why I went to the SigPro Softy. Also, the stance mat is a little bit more, squishy than most. But you can see in my flooring system, this is the area where my SigPro Softy mat sits. I have the 4 by 7 foot SigPro Softy set up, and then here's the hitting strip. I'll put the dimensions in the description and the link in the description for this. Now I'll give you down here low, and you'll be able to see my flooring system. This is the foam board, the rubber, and then the turf. And that's what matches up flush from my demonstration for the install with my hitting mat. So I can basically take this and we can slide that back into place. I'll do that really quick. And what I like to do is set this edge down last, because it sort of tucks it in the corner and then puts this turf tightly or on top of my putting turf. And then last I'll put in the actual hitting strip. This is the replaceable part of my flooring system. One modification I made to my SigPro hitting strips, I drilled a little hole here in the bottom of the hitting strip, and I've got this clasp that opens up here and this ring. And what I can do is hook this clasp down in the hole that I drilled. And this gives me a ring that barely pops above the surface. You can barely see it. But what this will allow me to do is I can hook some of my Bungy tees to this ring, which you can't see from the surface, and it returns the tee to its original spot. And here's the Bungy tee. This is actually one of the K2 tees, and I've got one of these little clips, and instead of a sandbag, I can clip it onto that ring. My tee sits here, and now when you hit, the tee is sort of anchored to the hitting strip. All right, I think last what I want to give you is just sort of a feel for how tight this is to the edge. And you can really see, got some dirt on there, but how flat that is. All right, so to start out, I covered my entire room with these 1/2 inch thick, they're foam with a rubber top. You can see they interlock like this, and they're EVA foam with, I believe it's an 1/8 inch of rubber. So 3/8 foam, 1/8 inch rubber, 1/2 inch. I have a hitting mat that's a SigPro Softy, and that's 2 3/8 inch, so that's gonna be my total height. And I want my putting green to match that 2 3/8 so that the ball rolls seamlessly off of the hitting mat onto my putting green area in the sim area. For the border, I used a white 2.5 inch by 3/4 inch thick piece of white painted pine, and I measured out where I wanted my frame to be, and I built the frame first. So I made all my cuts for my frame, and I built the frame first. So let's just say I made these cuts, and for example, we'll put them together here. I basically took these and shot nails through them. Until we had that, and then I pounded these nails in, and I built my frame. So I had my frame. I then took my frame and I laid it out on top of all my tiles. So this was my black tile. I laid this out, and I used a tool like this. It's an oscillating saw. You can see on the camera how it just like it shakes side to side when you pull the trigger. And it worked really good at just going around the room and making this cut. And so I would go along the floor and cut exactly where I had my frame sitting. So if my frame sat here, I would just go right along the outside of it and make the cut, and then I would do it again on the inside. And I removed this 3/4 inch strip of black flooring from the room, and I dropped my frame into its spot like this, pinched between these two pieces. So you can see it's pinched right between the two pieces. If I remove the outer piece, you can see it sitting flat, and this 1/2 inch butt right up to it. So the whole room's covered. I wanted to keep this flooring because I was going to use 1/2 inch foam. Everywhere on the internet told me I shouldn't use this. This is 1.5 inch thick pink basement foam, and the worry was that it would compress, that it would shrink down. I wanted to give it a try because, quite frankly, it is significantly cheaper by a giant factor. I'll put the price and the link of what this all costs in the description below. Essentially, my thought was if I step onto this, yes, it will compress, but my intention was to put this flooring over the top of it, and then I take my Grass Tex Money Putt turf, which I'll show you guys that here. It's great putting turf. You can see it's got like a mesh back, and it's 3/8 inch total in thickness. So it's 3/8 inch. So we're gonna be with 1.5 inch foam, 1/2 inch tile, and 3/8 inch putting surface. We're gonna be exactly at 2 3/8, which is what my SigPro Softy mat is at. So then I can set this on top of the rubber, and as you see, it sits right inside of that border. So now I'm finished, and if you look at from a side view, we've got insulation, we've got rubber, and then we've got turf. And if I slide this border in from the side, you can see how it fits perfectly above that line. For this border, I wasn't certain that it was gonna be, say sturdy enough to just stand on its own, although it's squared in and attached to the walls. But what I did was I took a 3/8 inch drill bit and I drilled a pilot hole. And sorry, that's a 3/16. Then I took a 3/8 inch bit and I countersunk it. Okay, so that goes about halfway down into the board, that hole. And the point of that hole is so that I could take these Tapcon concrete anchor screws and essentially anchor them down through the board and into the concrete. So that would go down through and into the concrete. It would countersink into the wood here, and then I'd fill that with caulk and finish it later. To get into the concrete, I used an impact drill with a 3/16 bit, and I went through that same hole. Now keep in mind, my whole frame is already in place. So I would, drill this, hammer drill this into the concrete. Then I would take these concrete anchor screws right here, and I would drill those down into these holes, and they would countersink in like that. So they would go all the way down, and then I would cover this with caulk. Underneath the entire border, I used liquid nails and put that down as a bead all the way down on the ground. And then I set this on it. So I had caulk holding it down, and then Tapcon concrete anchor screw into the ground. To break it down, we've got the putting turf, I've got the black mat, and then I've got the foam tile. Once I had it all anchored and everything around, and I had the foam and the mat in place, that was where I had to go buy a 4 1/4 inch hole saw. So 4 1/4 inch hole saw, where I would come in and I would take out my piece, and there's a hole in the back, and go through the same process. So I end up with a hole and a hole. So now I've got my hole set. This is where my putting hole is going to go. Okay, and then for the putting cup, these holes, which I'll put in the description, they normally come about twice as thick. They come about 2 times as thick. I measured the thickness, I put them on my miter saw, and I cut them down. So I cut them to match the depth. And you can see they stick up. If I remove this outside piece, you can see it's sticking up just a little bit. And I want it to stick up about 1/8 of an inch above the top of this black. And just so you can see when I stand on this, what it looks like. This EVA, which I already had as flooring for my whole room, sort of spreads the weight out on this foam for me. And with the turf on top of that, I think it's going to hold up really well. So then I took my turf, which I cut to the same, spec, and I put that over top. Okay. And again, if you see, when you slide this board in from the side, our frame piece, it sits almost flush. It's almost perfect. It's actually a hair above. This is 2.5 inches. It's supposed to be about 1/8 above. This is 2.5 inches, and we are at a total of 2 3/8. You put the cups in first, and then we take our utility knife and get a new one, a sharp one. And I'll try to get a good view of this, but we will just feel for that cup. And I sort of started in the middle, and I cut my way to the edge of that plastic to where I could feel it. And then I went to the outside edge of that plastic, because you can kind of feel the cup, and I just cut carefully and tight to that plastic, as tight as I possibly could. But I took my time because it's in a giant piece of putting turf that you order. There you have it. You remove out your cup. So what we've got is, I can take my knife and sort of fine tune these edges. So you can see what we've got. I've got a putting cup, and I've got a couple screws under there just to raise it up for my cut. This cup is actually too shallow. It's an extra one I had, one that I miscut. But that's what you're left with. So, and again, our outside piece slides in. We've got a concrete anchor screw that goes into here, and we fill that. These are attached by nailers there. And that's how I assembled my flooring. In the description, I'll put some notes about what the tools I used and the steps I took. But really what I did first was I covered the entire room with the EVA 1/2 inch foam. Then I built my frame and I cut out a 3/4 inch space for my frame to set in to that flooring tile. I removed the flooring tile out from the frame completely and brought in my foam, my pink foam, which I had to cut to size. And each seam of the foam where they met, where the two 4x8 sheets met, I put duct tape to keep those seams aligned and together. And then once all my foam was laid down, I came back in with that flooring that I had just removed and put that on top. And then I came in with my putting turf, put that on top. Then I cut my cups. And when I put my putting turf on top, I also used this frame as my edge to cut the turf. So there you have it.
Hey, thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit the like or subscribe button. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next video.